Hello class, and welcome to our first lesson on Africa. You can see right in front of you here one of those beautiful composite pictures with all the clouds taken out of Africa at night, and right away you can see that the lights are really concentrated in just a couple places, right? I mean, this is modern Africa, so it's a little bit different from all the ancient stuff that we'll be studying, but I do like how this demonstrates to you here that the north, you can see right above my little red laser pointer here, is pretty populated. Then you've got this little gap, and then the population you can see starts up around about here. It starts a little bit more back up again. And you guys know, of course, what's right here and stopping, very many lights from being here, and that's the Sahara Desert. So, you can't talk about Africa without talking about that. This is this big separating stripe right on the top of Africa here that really makes the cultures and everything up here much different from the culture and history that you get from the peoples down here, because there's this big ocean of sand separating them. So that's, again, just sort of an important thing that we've all got to start with, and that I'll remind you guys of a million times, right? Africa is a continent. It's not a country, right? Very, very, very diverse. So, up in North Africa here, you have big population centers, obviously, so you can see the really glowing spot right here around the Nile. That's where you have a lot of the population centers today. You've got Nigeria down here with all these cities over here, and then down here, of course, you've got South Africa with their big cities. So this is what Africa looks like today. But in this brief little lesson, I want to demonstrate something to you about sort of why our history book and a lot of history books give Africa not a gigantic amount of attention. And that's this over here. Check this out, okay? So if you've got total area of the world, most land area that people, this is land area, by the way, I should have written that in there. This is obviously not including the oceans and the water, but if you're going for total land area, Eurasia, again, there's really not too much of a geographical difference between Europe and Asia. It's really just one big continent. We just, for purposes of making stuff easier for ourselves, we divide it into two. But for Europe and Asia is most of the land. Then Africa is the second largest continent, and then you've got North America and Central and South America after that. Oceania is what we're going to go ahead and call Australia, plus all of the surrounding islands, just for the sake of convenience. But Africa's, it's pretty huge. It's pretty gigantic. It's bigger than North America. It's got a lot of land. But if you back history up a little bit and go back to 400 BC, you'll see the world population is not at all evenly distributed, right? This is all of the land area in the world. This is hypothetically all of the areas that people could live. But this is where they really do live back in, again, this is the year 400. I'll show you a couple that are after this. Most people, right, the majority of people, more than all the other continents added together, live in either Asia or Europe. North America population levels are quite low. Same with Central and South America. Same with Australia and all them. So that's one of the reasons, if we're gonna defend our book, this is one of the reasons that Africa gets less attention than the significant amount of attention that's given to Asia and that's given to Europe, and that's because take a look right here. You see, the population levels are lower. There are less people living there. It doesn't change that much by the time we get to the year 10. As you can see, check this out. You don't need me to tell you what bar is by far the biggest there. Let's see how Africa does in the year 200. Not a lot better. If having a big population is better. But look, you see, it's not that big. Even you get up to 600. Look, see, it's not. It's really nothing. That's not fair. It's not significant when compared to the populations levels we're dealing with in Europe and in Asia. So if Europe and Asia are getting the majority of our attention, it's because they have a majority of the people. Now we go a little bit past 1,000, but this pattern stays pretty much the same until you get to around 1,500 when things start getting, sort of wacky in terms of, now you've got big transfers of populations across the hemispheres. So after 1,500, you're going to see these numbers here start, going up, and then these numbers, and then with our new population explosion, you're going to see these numbers ballooning up as well. Asia still has the most people, but Africa is gonna go up. I think today Africa has more human beings living in it than live in Europe. So this is going to change, but this is why we get to this point. And there's a couple other historical problems, and I just want to show you this. Okay, these are problems, and when I say problems, I mean problems in societies in Africa, and then also problems for historians, problems in trying to reconstruct what happened there. Deserts cover roughly 40% of it. It's got poor soil in that it's less productive when it comes to growing food, and because of its placement, because of the temperature level that you get there, you're going to have more disease-carrying insects than other major continents. The early civilizations did not have written languages, and that's a big factor in deciding sort of who we study and who we don't, because it's who we can study and who we can't. They used music and storytelling in, again, the early societies to pass down a community's history, which was awesome for them, and I'm sure that the stories were really great, and I'm sure that the music was really fun to listen to. But it's tough for us because now we don't have that stuff to learn about these kings and everything. And then to just give you a real quick, I'm not even going to go through all those pictures, but the kingdoms that we will look at really briefly, and I mean really briefly, I'm just going to introduce to you here. The first are the Kush, who are down here just underneath ancient Egypt. They actually used to be part of like the ancient Egyptian empire, but they free themselves. And they, become independent, and they're their own thing for a while. Before they're the Kush, they're the Nubians. They're called the Nubia earlier than that. And then we sort of change them and call them Kush in around the 700s. And they're chugging along for a while. They're significant ancient, society, sort of civilization, doing their thing over here, and then they fade, as all these societies do, right? And Aksum, which is down here, again, sort of modern-day Ethiopia, you can see here in the pink, they start to rise up and they become the major power. These guys are interesting because they're interesting for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons they're interesting is around 300 or ish. The king converted to Christianity, right? The year 300, Christianity is, a major religion. He converts, and so this kingdom becomes sort of, this African Christian kingdom, and remains so for a while, a couple hundred years, until there's the rise of another religion that we talked about that, as you can see, came from a town not too far away, right? There was lots of trading, lots of important ties that bound this little empire, this little civilization here, to the empires right across the water here. So when you have that big civilization, that big religion that's going to take the world by storm, coming from up here, that's going to affect these guys as well. So that's all I got for you today. We'll do some more tomorrow.